Good evening and welcome to this November 25, 2024 meeting of Lake Bluff Village Board of Trustees. Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Cole?
Here.
Trustee Fisher?
Here.
Trustee Freed?
Here.
Trustee Hatch?
Here.
Trustee Rappin?
Here.
Trustee Ryder?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Please stand and join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next are the consideration of the minutes of the November 11th, 2024 regular village board meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Are there any comments?
We did forget to include Clerk Eshelmanis as present, which he was. So that's one edit that should be cleaned up.
Thank you. Any more changes to the minutes? I believe this is a roll call. Clerk,
It's a
call the
voice
roll.
vote.
It's a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
No one opposed? Great start. Thank you very much. Motion carries.
All uphill from here.
We love you, Rich.
Next on our agenda are the non-agenda items and visitors. The village president and board of trustees allocates 15 minutes during this item for those individuals who would like the opportunity to address the village board of trustees on any matter not listed on the agenda. Each person addressing the village board of trustees is asked to limit their comments to a maximum of 5 minutes. I do not see anybody standing up here. Do we have anybody online?
No, sir.
And I say we move forward. Next on our agenda is the village board sets the order of a meeting. The village president and board of trustees will entertain requests from anyone present on the order of business to be conducted during the village board meeting. So I understand that item 11, 12, 14, and 7A should proceed first. Are there any objection to that change?
Nope.
Nope. So therefore, moving to item 11. Item 11 is a public hearing regarding year 2024 property tax levy. The village of Lake Bluff, in keeping with past practice, will conduct a public hearing on the proposed year 2024 property tax levy. As part of the hearing, Finance Director Connell will present information on the Finance Committee tax levy recommendation. The hearing notice was published in the Lake County News Sun on November 15, 2024, and on the village's website on November 19, 2024. Please refer to the subsequent 2 agenda items for the proposed tax levy information and ordinances. And so I declare a public hearing open regarding our year 2024 property tax levy. Mrs. O'Connell.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me the time to present some information on the 24 property tax levy. The levy presentation is for property tax bills that will be sent to property owners on May 2025. So when Illinois became a state in 1818, the Constitution contained a provision for taxing properties in direct proportion to the value of the property. From 1818 to 1930, amendments to the Constitution provided the state with various powers and authorities concerning property tax. The Revenue Tax Act of 1872 gave Illinois final authority for setting valuations, and the last year the state levied real estate taxes was 1930. Since then, property taxes have been levied at the local level. So today we'll review the sources of the revenue funding for the village operations and capital initiatives. We'll look at the property tax assessment cycle. We'll look at how property tax dollars are used, some historical EAV and levy information, and then the impact on the median family home. So the village has several financial policies which guide the preparation of the tax levy, the budget, and allow the village to proactively seek solutions to change revenue streams. Some of the more significant practices are to balance revenue sources with taxes, user fees, and other sources to reduce the reliance on any one source. So here you can see, can you make this bigger, Drew?
Not very elegantly.
It's okay, that's better. Okay, well, here you can see the sources of revenue that are related to the budget and ultimately the levy. So permits, fines and licenses, interest, sales tax, other taxes, property taxes, the largest source, miscellaneous charges for services, and some grant money. And that's based on the general fund revenues from the FY25 budget. So just a review of the taxing assessment cycle. The timing to determination of the taxing levy amounts creates a challenge because it occurs prior to preparation of the budget, and the fiscal year and the taxing year don't align. So we're kind of always looking forwards and backwards to determine if we're in the right place as far as the revenue for the property tax cycle is concerned. The rate is determined by the Lake County Clerk and appears on the property owner's tax bill, and the tax rate is applied to the property's assessed valuation, which determines the amount of money the taxpayer pays to the village and to all the taxing districts. In order to collect the property tax money, government agencies in the state of Illinois require a tax levy. And the tax levy is a protection of the monies the government agencies obtains through the annual property tax levy. The village board adopts the tax levy by ordinance and files the ordinance with the Lake County Clerk by the last Tuesday in December. And the funds are identified in the tax levy and collected through property taxes and utilized by the village along with other revenue sources to fund the village budget. So where do your property taxes go? From the perspective of the entire tax bill, the 2024 levy, the village's portion is 8.86%, and the remaining districts are on the pie chart, the largest being the high school district, or the school district 65 at 39.4%. And then the remaining districts make up the rest, as you can see on the chart. The only one that's missing is CLC Jawa because they do not levy taxes right now. A little more, yeah, okay. So this is a historical snapshot of the assessed value by class for a period of time along with the tax extensions over the period. So while comparing the correlation to EAV, this chart does include the library extension. So the slope of the orange line at the top is the total EAV, which peaked, looks like, it's not on the chart, but it did peak in 2011 and declined by 25% in 2018. So what changes EAV? The market value, income generating capacity of current properties and new construction, or the annexation added to the tax rolls. And the village hasn't annexed any property since 1998, when the sanctuary subdivision became part of its boundaries. So for this 2024 levy, the total levy is $5,254,338 compared to the prior year of $5,043,168. We use the consumer price index for calculations, which was 3.4%. The estimated new construction is 1.69, and the total EAV estimated to increase by 10.77% per the last set of data received by the county. The Lake Bluff Libraries Board's portion of the extension is $1,206,897. This does represent a 6% increase to the portion of the levy, but the total percent of change for the entire levy is still 4.18%, which keeps us in line with PTEL. No.
Sorry.
Yeah. Can you scroll up a little bit? Yeah. So this is a chart that lists out the 2024 tax levy estimated resulting rates. So it lists out by category the amount that the levy includes, and then the third column gives you the what percent of budget that makes up. So for audit, the 26,000 is 63% of the budgeted expense. Corporate expenditures, which would include salaries and contractual obligations across the general fund, make up 17% of the budgeted number, and so on. Probably one of the larger ones, the police pension obligation, makes up 92% of that obligation, because really the levy is the sole contributor to, the police pension contribution. Does anyone have any questions on that particular slide? No? Okay. So the 2024 breakdown by function, this chart shows the levy by purpose, and related to the other chart, it's important to note that this levy doesn't fully fund all the functions. The village relies on multiple sources of revenue, such as sales tax, other taxes, building permits, and user fees and licenses and fines to cover the cost of all services. The pensions, including police, IMRF, and Social Security, represent 30% of the total levy, committing over 1.59 million of the 5.2 million.
I want to ask you a question real quick.
Sure.
The total percent of a resident of Lake Bluff's tax bill that is utilized for the village's needs is 8.86%.
Yes.
Right there.
And so that chart you were just showing breaks out that 8.86%. Drew, could you maybe opine a little bit? How does 8.86% compare to other communities?
Well, it's a great question. It's difficult to get an apples to apples comparison, because if you just take our sister city to the south, Lake Forest, right? They have parks and recreations as a department of the city rather than a separate taxing district. Yeah. And so each community has nuances like that. And so it's difficult to get apples to apples. I would say, just generally speaking, and I'm 100% objective here, that I think less than 10% of your tax bill is a high value proposition for the village for the services that we provide. How do we do that? A big part of it is we have a volunteer / stipend-based fire department. That's enormous when it comes from a financial perspective for the village. We talk about the police pension levy. We're not talking about a fire levy as well, right? That's
Right.
That's
a big
big part of that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You will see in a couple slides a comparison for the market home value with the rates associated with multiple communities. Okay. It won't give you the percentage of the tax bill, but it'll give you an idea of what their tax bill looks like compared to others. So.
And I would go on to say, so the village has done different things over the years. One thing that we do that's unique is that the village, we levy, because we used to be the household waste and recycling collector, but we're not anymore. We still levy for that, and so homeowners don't pay for that. It goes straight through the property tax versus being billed. So there's little nuances that we do. So a lot of towns just let that be billed, to the homeowner, and kind of get out of that business altogether. But the village has changed our operations over the years. Like we're going to talk about mosquito abatement. That's a service that the village picked up. We didn't used to provide, but now we do with the dissolvement of the Lake Bluff Mosquito Abatement District. We also, we got out of the business of the garbage collection, right?
Right.
We still pay
And it
for
isn't
but-
always apples to apples,
Right.
not to take away from our percentage being low, but a lot of other municipalities levy for a Parks and Recs department that we don't, that they
yeah.
include in their levy. Libertyville, Lake Forest. So there are different numbers that are embedded into all those services that everyone provides, so.
It
it's not
strikes me
always
as
the
an
same.
incredibly low number.
Yeah.
No argument here.
Next one. So the impact on the current median value of a market home is $772,300. This compares the 2023 tax bill for the portion, which of note is a difference from one year to the next is the median market value for 2023 was less. So the 2024 number is greater, and then it shows you, based on the levy that we're presenting, the calculation would increase by $25.73.
That's crazy.
And this is what I was talking about, Steve, the comparison between all the neighboring communities, lists out the EAVs for all the communities. This is in order from least to greatest, so it gives you the tax bill for the $772,000 home within those communities and compares them. So we're, at the second lowest when compared to all the other rates within those communities. Now, that doesn't mean that there are homes at that value in all those communities, or a lot of them,
This is the entire tax bill
Yes.
that you're showing now?
Yes, it's the
Okay,
entire
not our
tax bill.
8.8%.
Not just the village bill, but it still gives you a sense of, where we mark off on the list.
Not that everything's a competition. But, yeah, so we're on the medal stand, we got the silver, and so.
But next year, that could change because the school district referendum will likely impact the number one community on the list. So when I look, this is,
number
based
two.
on prior year numbers. So,
And number 2.
sorry. Does anyone have any questions?
So there's one more element this year, a little bit different. We're bringing the libraries here to make a presentation. The President, Bonnie Shaw's here. I've got another presentation before the public hearings close, so bear with me one second while I change.
Hi, Susan, how are you? All right, so hello, good evening, everyone. As Drew said, I'm Bonnie Shaw. I'm the president of the library board. I'm delighted to be joined by 4 other members of the library board. Allie, Jenny, Sandy, and Janie are all here with me tonight, so thanks for being here. And I'm going to try to accomplish 2 things with 3 slides. The first is to provide you with an update of what's been happening at the library. Not sure if you've been reading the newsletters that we send, but we have been a lot more transparent with the community about the library. Additionally, I'll talk a little bit about the 6% levy that request that the library has submitted. So the first slide is just a year in review. So I've broken this up into a couple different focus areas, try to keep it super high level. I'm going to try to go no more than 5 minutes, but happy to stay to answer any questions you have. So the first thing I want to talk about is personnel. Like other libraries in Illinois and across the United States, we've had substantial turnover. Working in a library today is very different than it was working in a library 20 years ago. Our staff turnover has been about 30%, and right now we have 3 positions that are vacant. One is the library director role. The library director we recruited to join Lake Bluff about 2 years ago went to another library, a better funded library, for a number 2 position instead of the number 1 position. There's an HR manager at this library, there's a building and grounds manager at this library, and she left for more money. And our number 2 position, which was our head of circulation and reference, this is the person who served as our interim director 24 months ago. She served for about 6 months as interim director, left to take another job at another library. So we have 2 key full-time out of a total of about 6 full-time roles that we have at the library. 2 are currently vacant. They're posted. We are recruiting. We hope to have the library director position filled by March. We were able to recruit a part-time interim director to help keep the lights on, literally, help keep the board functioning during that time. So that has certainly impacted what was good momentum that I feel that we had at the library. In terms of the building, you guys have heard some about the building when I was here back in January talking about PPRT. The building's 50 years old and hasn't changed much in that time. The museum addition is about 25 years old, same story. We did complete an accessibility study, which helped support us in getting a $45,000 grant to address some of the accessibility issues at the library. We completed a lead and asbestos study for the building because before you endeavor to do any kind of major interior project, you want to know where these potential contaminants, health and safety issues exist. Good news, no lead. Bad news, there is asbestos. Not a surprise in a building that was built 50 years ago and the other piece built 25 years ago. We also completed a MEP study. What is a MEP study? I learned this recently too. Mechanical Engineering Plumbing Systems Study. Health and safety systems were also tested. And that readout, confirmed for us that the HVAC units, which have been problematic and have caused temperature control issues in our building, such that we've closed down because we can't regulate the AC during the summer, we can't regulate the heat during the winter. Those things are beyond their useful life. So we're learning a lot about the building. We also have started the facilities master plan. We did surveys, we did open houses, we did focus groups, we got staff input. That is currently on hold as we have a part-time director working with us. Also, the installation of the security system is on hold because the presence of asbestos and the implementation of the security system have converged. So we're sorting through how do we go forward? How do we go forward with that? So that's a quick update on the building. From a finance perspective, again, we were here talking about PPRT. That is now complete. And throughout the summer, Susan, Regis Drew, myself, Allie, and the previous library director have met and are in the bottom of the ninth, to use a baseball term, to hopefully pen a new IGA agreement between the village and the library for a 5-year term with renewals, hopefully. So that's from a finance perspective. Operations. One of the most noticeable things to our entire community has been that the hours of the library have been reduced. This has helped to address the financing position of the library, the staffing challenges we've had at the library, as well as, very importantly, building usage. We were open from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. at night, and sometimes we would see 3 or 4 people walk through the door. We've also had some service adjustments. Those were done predominantly because of the position vacancy, where our passport services and our notary services have been suspended because the person who provided that most frequently is no longer at the library. Those are services that, interestingly, many of our neighboring libraries, such as the Lake Forest Library, does not provide. They do not provide passport services. They do not provide notary services. So really giving us a little bit back to the core of our services, program development, collection development, staff development, while we are short-staffed. And lastly, one thing you may notice when you come into the library is that a number of our collections, we're resizing them. So as an example, music CDs is something that we keep in the library. Now, I don't know about you, but I use Pandora, I use Spotify, I really don't use CDs anymore. In fact, cars don't even have CD players in them for the most part anymore, right? We were seeing 1% of our CD collection, our music CD collection, even borrowed into our community. So there's no reason for us to continue to have space and staff managing a very large CD collection. So you'll continue, I'll talk about that a little bit more on the next slide. So that's what's been happening at the library from a big picture standpoint anyway. For our finances for 2025 and 2026, we've proposed a 6% levy increase, and this is to provide an additional chunk of money, roughly 27. There's a small transposition or error in one of those numbers, but it's 3.5 just like the village, and we're requesting money in order to hire a part-time building and grounds person. So one of the pieces of feedback we heard loud and clear from our previous director is that because of the age of the building, up to 40% of her work week was spent dealing with building issues. Now, if you're a person who gets a master's in library and information sciences, you're actually not taught that you need to flush your water heater every year in your building. You're actually not taught how to, manage the lighting, how to, manage a building. So this is an important thing, really, as we go to recruit a new library director. We need to have somebody on staff dedicated to maintenance and small repairs at the library. For example, we've got carpet that needs to be repaired. It's a trip hazard for staff. It's in some very high traffic areas. This building and grounds person would make that happen in lieu of having your library director have that responsibility on their desk. So that's what the levy proposal is all about, is really putting some resources behind keeping the building running smoothly. Another comment I wanted to share with the village trustees is that the fund reserve did increase over last year. When our audit was completed, the library fund reserve is at $495,000. The increase was predominantly PPRT. PPRT fell right through into the library's general fund. We're at 42% of the 2024-2025 levy. So not great, still in the 40s. If you had any interest in paging through the 2025-2026 budget, you would see that we're maintaining staff salaries at market rate. We made a lot of adjustments in 24-25 to bring our staff salaries to the market median. We're also reducing purchasing for certain collections that are earmarked for weeding, like I talked about the music CDs. And we've increased our budget for ebooks because our community is demanding more and more ebooks. I hope all of you use your library card for ebooks. I apologize when you hit a 14-week wait time. Again, by shuffling some of the money around, we hope to be able to address some of those long wait times. So my last slide is about 2025. So the number one priority for the board is to recruit and onboard our new library director. And that'll happen in Q1. We expect that to happen in March. Priority number 2 is to complete the strategic facilities plan with our new library director. And we'll also be recruiting and onboarding new trustees. We have 4 positions vacant on the library board. Only 2 people are running. So we will have to recruit or appoint post the election some additional trustees. And the third priority for Q4 is to complete a comprehensive long plan that addresses the financial stability, the facility requirements, and the community needs for the library in Lake Bluff. That's it. I know I was longer than 5 minutes. I apologize. Any questions?
Good information. Helpful and interesting, so thank you.
Thanks, Tara.
Thank you.
Bonnie, thank you very much. I know that these 3 pages have required a lot of work and a lot of deep thinking about what the future of the library is. And I know that the financial situation you're in and the state of your building is not helping. And I can only think about windows when I say that. And so I know that you guys have done a lot of work. I have not been a nice person to you. You need to do work. And so I apologize for that, but I think you're heading in a great direction. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
right.
And thank you for Ali, Jenny, Sandy, and Jenny for being here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I will now welcome a member of our public comments. If there are any comments about this public hearing? Do we have anybody online?
No,
who
sir.
need to make comments? And so if there are no more comments without objection on the board, I hereby declare this public hearing closed.
No objection.
Thank you. Moving next to item 12, I believe, on our list. That is an ordinance levying property taxes for the fiscal year beginning May 1st, 2024, and ending April 30, 2025, for the village of Lake Bluff, Lake County, Illinois. Is there a motion to approve this ordinance?
So moved.
Seconded?
Thank you. Pursuant to state law, on or before the last Tuesday in December, the village must file with the county clerk an ordinance requesting a property tax to be levied on all taxable property within the village. After review of levy estimates and financial projections at their October 28th meeting, the Finance Committee unanimously recommended approval of an aggregate property tax levy of $5,242,951, which included the village share of a property tax levy of $4,047,441 and the library share of $1,195,510. $1,195,510. On November 13, 2024, the Lake Bluff Public Library Board provided a levy request totaling $1,206,897, an additional $11,387, increasing the total aggregate property tax levy to $5,254,338. The total levy amount of $5,254,338 is in compliance with the Property Tax Limitation Act and the Truth in Taxation Act. Any question on the board? It is going to be a roll call. Clerk?
It's an ordinance first reading, so.
It's
Voice vote.
First reading.
first reading, so it's a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion carries. Thank you very much. Library, congratulations. Next on our item, on our list, reordered, is item 14.
Correct. Yeah.
14. An ordinance granting variations to perform exterior renovations and reconstruct a terrace at 610 Sunrise Avenue. Is there a motion to approve this ordinance?
So
This-
moved?
Seconded.
Thank you. Sherry Duda and Dan Reedy, as applicants, have applied for variations related to the front yard setback, side yard setback, and impervious surface coverage in order to rebuild an outdoor terrace attached to the front of their single-family residence located at 610 Sunrise Avenue. Variation for FAR, 9.3%, and impervious surface coverage, 7.6%, were granted in September of 2023. Since then, the applicants have changed the terrace design to include bowing the front wall forward 18 inches at the center and widening the perimeter wall so it can serve as a seat wall, adding approximately 20.55 square feet and exceeding the total allowable by 356 square feet or 8%. The existing terrace is currently non-conforming with respect to the front yard and side yard setbacks, and the new design will not encroach any further into either setbacks. On November 20, 2024, the PCZB unanimously voted 6-0 to forward a favorable recommendation to the village board on these requests. The limited public comment received regarding this request for relief has been supportive. Comments on the board? Any more comments from PCZB?
No further comments from the public or on the petition.
If I did not see any more comments, this is a voice vote,
First reading.
first reading. Anyone, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And the motion carries. Congratulations.
So the applicant has requested, today there were some conversations about having a second reading waived, and that was for practical reasons. Winter is coming, and so they were asking to try to get ahead of the curve. And in this particular case, they've submitted for a building permit or close to it, and the review for this work is not that extensive, and we can turn around a permit in very short order. So it would literally be waiting on zoning approval for second reading.
So should I ask for a motion for a second vote, or how do we do that?
Yes. If there's comfort with it, there was only the one neighbor came to the meeting and commented was supportive of the
I
project.
was going to ask, but
Yeah.
from what I hear,
Yep.
if the community and the neighbors are not impacted negatively,
Yeah.
and we're not anticipating other neighbors to step forward,
No.
I'll
The-
make
the-
the motion. I move to waive a second reading.
Second.
Thank you. So the second one will be a roll call. Correct?
Yes.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee, Trustee Fisher?
Aye.
Trustee Freed?
Aye.
Trustee Hatch?
Aye.
Trustee Rappin?
Aye.
Trustee Ryder?
Aye.
Trustee Cole?
Aye.
The motion carries.
Thank you, Clerk. Congratulations. And moving forward with, I believe, item 7A, that would be our village administrator's report today.
So we talked a little bit earlier, actually in the Finance Committee, about the villages just coming close to the end of, well, the halfway point of year 3 of our contract with Clark Environmental Mosquito Management, who has been providing mosquito abatement services in the village for the last 2.5 years. And this has been an issue that the village, in terms of scope of services, has talked about pretty much annually, and mostly focused on adulticide treatments and how we shouldn't do that. And we haven't done that yet, and a lot of that's been weather-related. Thankfully, you haven't had to make that hard call. But we've invited Mr. George Ballas here from Clark to give an update on the board on how the year went, and we'll take it from there. Let me get to that presentation. George, give me 1 second.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to come before the board here today to give an update on what has been happening within the village here for the last year.
That didn't work out so great. Let me do it a different way.
Well, as we wait, we can discuss a little bit of it. As Drew pointed out, weather is a key component in mosquito control and mosquito populations. In many cases, many people understand that mosquitoes need water to actually breed. And so early in the year, we experienced heavy rainfalls. And most people acknowledge and understand that mosquitoes of that type are traditionally nuisance or floodwater type mosquitoes. This year, we also experienced, we went from a very wet spring and into July. We actually had some heavy tornadic issues associated with the middle of July. But as we moved into August, we actually had a severe drought. And the type of mosquito that carries West Nile virus actually thrives in drought-like conditions. And so what happens is generally you have floodwater mosquitoes that come off in large numbers. Those people on the western end of the village probably experience that a little bit more than they do on the eastern end. If you live up in Sanctuary, you might experience some more nuisance mosquitoes. But what happens is there's traditionally a transition from the nuisance mosquitoes over to what we're calling Culex or northern house mosquitoes. And as we pop this up, I'll give you a little, last time I was here, I gave you the outline of what the life cycle was of a floodwater mosquito. That was part of the discussion of where the key criteria of what you were going to be doing during that previous discussion. But in this case, we'll see the life cycle of the Culex mosquito. So it's very similar. It has a complete life cycle, 4 stages. It's important to understand this because, again, the type of mosquito breeds a little bit different. And so this mosquito lays its eggs, you'll see that second stage after it's mated, on the surface of water, stagnant water areas. We have a lot of catch basins, storm drains, things of that sort. That's one of the more common areas, but around people's homes as well is a common breeding area. They develop into larvae. This is where most of the control efforts occur. In the village here, this is where we go out and actually inspect sites, do treatments, and try and reduce that population. The pupa stage, think of it as like the cocoon stage of a butterfly. It's a non-feeding stage, very difficult to control, and then goes back up into the adult stage. Those egg rafts are about 300 eggs, about half of them are male, half of them are female. And the males start to develop first, and they come off so they can have females as they start to come off, and they will mate and actually we'll go over how we use this against them later on. Next slide. So we talked a little bit about the weather. As we go into this slide, you'll see up in the upper left-hand corner was some massive thunderstorms that occurred during the month of June 22nd. We experienced over 4 inches of rain that came down. Luckily, we did not have any flood conditions here within the village, but we had a lot of what we'll call nuisance or floodwater situations from that rainfall. As you move to the bottom right, you'll see in August, we actually moved into a severe drought, and we still stay abnormally dry right now. And as we started to move into August, we started to see positives for West Nile virus within collections, not only here within the village, but also in neighboring communities. Next slide. The program that we have in place for the village is an integrated pest management approach. It includes many different steps. It's based on the West Nile virus guidelines from the Centers for Disease Control. I was lucky enough, or I guess privileged enough to be in New York City during the first outbreak of West Nile virus in 1999. We were brought out there to help the Centers for Disease Control in the city of New York control that outbreak, and we're actually implemented some of these control strategies going back over almost 20 years at this point. And so what we've been able to do is we developed a program called Earthright, which is a program that utilizes techniques such as using bicycles, but also using products that are Organic Material Review Institute listed. And so we combine those together to actually put together a program which is something that would be beneficial for the village from both a control standpoint, but also a sustainability standpoint as well. Next slide. What we do is we go out and we actually check standing water sites, and we checked over 1,100 sites within the village. We'll see a map of it in the next slide, but we actually go out and actually take water samples looking for small little larvae, and you can see them delicately on the right-hand side. Next slide. And there's lots of different water areas that are around. There's different types of ravines. There's also roadside ditches. Within the village, there are over 190 sites, and so we're out there on a regular basis, about every 2-week cycle, going out and checking those sites to determine if breeding is occurring and if breeding is occurring during treatments. Next slide. We're actually looking for these. This is what a larva looks like up close. Larva feed on the bottom there. They're actually putting through microorganisms, and then the top is an air, so they're coming up sort of like a whale to get their air up the surface. And what we're able to do in control, we're able to actually put some things in so they would feed on those mechanisms in different areas. Next slide. One of the major areas that we have on top of the 190 plus sites, we have over 1,500 storm drains or catch basins. You can see on the left-hand side, one of the bikes that's out doing a treatment. We're actually dropping a product into the water, which actually will kill mosquitoes in the water. We do 4 applications of over 1,500 catch basins. Those are to control larvae in the water sources on top of those open water sources that we saw earlier, like ravines or roadside ditches. And so there is the main mechanism that's going on, and this is the main area that we'll see large numbers of Culex mosquito, that northern house mosquito, breeding in. So these treatments are very effective. They go June, July, August, and into September. Those control for 30 days at a time. We use 4 different treatments here because of the amount of rainfall. This is kind of the Bermuda Triangle of weather. As you know, living here for such a long time, we can go for a long time having no rain, and then we will get massive amounts of rain, 5-6 inches in one rainfall. They will be flushed at that time, so we do this on a monthly basis to control those mosquitoes. And again, what those mosquitoes are looking for is stagnant water, and as you can see on the right-hand side, when you pull the lid off, many times there's water in there with a lot of high organic matter, which these Culex mosquitoes thrive in. Next slide. One of the ways that we look at this is we want to see what types of mosquitoes that are out there. So on the left-hand side, there what is known as a New Jersey light trap. We collect mosquitoes 3 times per week, going from May all the way into September. And then on the right-hand side is a trap that we talked about fooling the mosquitoes a little bit. This is an above-ground catch basin. It has high organic matter, and what we do is we allow those mosquitoes, they're going to lay, the female mosquitoes, to lay their eggs on the surface of the water. A fan collects them into the top. They are brought back to our lab and tested for virus using PCR, similar to what you would have for COVID virus. And we have a biosafety level 3 laboratory, which we bring those all back into. So we collect those mosquitoes every week.
They're born with the virus?
They are not. So what happens is they feed on different types of animals that may have the virus. In this case, West Nile virus, primarily it's birds. And so they will feed on the birds. It'll take in that virus, and they'll go back and forth between the birds and the mosquitoes The birds will feed, or the mosquitoes will feed on the birds, spread the virus back, the birds will move, other mosquitoes will take it, and so the virus is very cyclical in that nature.
So this is so weird. If a mosquito has West Nile and it has a baby, the baby doesn't have West Nile?
It traditionally does not have West Nile virus. So it has to come out and actually feed on birds or another animal that has the virus. Different than malaria or different other things that can feed directly, this can't do that way. As we look at this picture here, you can see this is the village here, and then there's some large circles. The red circle is a half-mile radius around the trap located within the village. This is part of the trapping. The larger blue circle is 2 miles, 1 mile on each side. And so you can see some additional circles. You'll see one out on the left-hand side, which is out in what we'll call the unincorporated area, a little bit further west, and you can see some north coming, the large blue circle coming from the naval base. So what we're able to do is not only use the trap that's located here to determine what the risk and infection rate is for mosquitoes, but we can use neighboring traps as well. And so this is how, if there's a recommendation for treatment, adult mosquito treatment, it's not just a single trap, we'd be looking at a larger dynamic here. Over the last several years, we have not had to make that call moving forward. So next slide. All those samples are brought back to this laboratory here. This laboratory is located out of Roselle, Illinois. It is a platinum building, LEED platinum building, and also has, it's at biosafety level 3. This is a net positive building that we've actually put together, so it actually produces more energy than it uses for our laboratory facilities. You can just see some of the laboratory services. On the right-hand side, they're actually identifying mosquito larvae. On the left-hand side, we're actually looking at adult mosquitoes. So all those collections are brought back, and scientists are looking at those to determine risk factors based on what we're collecting. So we talked a little bit about why we make different recommendations at different times. Most of the time, it's based on the treatments are based for larval control, and those are ongoing treatments. Adult mosquito control may be necessary based on infection rates. This year, we had 64 human cases of West Nile virus. We had 6 cases here in Lake County. There was 1 fatality, which was very near to this area, just a little further to the west. And so, again, we didn't make a recommendation for any adult mosquito control here, but some of the areas to the west where we saw larger numbers, we did make recommendations. The numbers of cases overall are a little bit lower for every human case. Those are cases that usually are hospitalizations. There's usually somewhere between 100 to 1,000 other cases, people who get just normal summer sickness, seems like a flu, they're out of work for a number of weeks. Because the number of cases, 64, there were actually 11 fatalities statewide. So it's a huge number in comparison. Generally, you would see that number much lower. It'd be about 5% of the cases would be fatalities. But now, because of different reporting functions, only hospitalization cases are reported. So that's why the number's a little bit different. So I'm here for any questions that you might have. That's the Culex pipian up close. Again, that's the northern house mosquito. That's the mosquito that this program is really based on, is really trying to reduce that mosquito to reduce the risk of West Nile virus. But at the same time, we do control measures for other types of mosquitoes. There are about 50 different types of mosquitoes in Lake County. About 38 of them are found here within the village. Yes.
Question of the board?
Questions?
I was hoping I appreciate everything you do for us, including keeping the mosquitoes out of my backyard. I see a difference, so I'm grateful. When you were last here and we talked about, I voiced my concerns about adult treatment, so I'm grateful that we haven't had to use the adult treatment. And I'm hoping, because there are people here today and maybe people listening, and it's always great to refresh my own memory of the impact on other species, so both flora and fauna, the treatment that we're doing, whether it's just larva treatment. And I just have to acknowledge, when you showed that close-up picture of the larva, every single person made the same face, which was like, ooh, we all are grossed out by the mosquitoes, but the treatment can or cannot have an impact on, for instance, bees. or other animals. Can you just remind us about?
Yep, so the larval control will have no effect on any of those. So your treatments are directly to water sources. They're affecting mosquito larvae that are developing, so they're feeding on that. Different than other insects, like bees aren't in that water source as well. So from a larval control standpoint, you won't see any of those. Most of the questions come regarding adult mosquito control. So adult mosquito control has been studied fairly extensively across the board. When applications are done, and the EPA and the CDC both came out with a joint statement following West Nile virus and put out another statement just recently about this. So when used according to label directions, they do not pose risk to plants, animals, pets, or even other insects. And what they affect is insects of a certain weight class.
Right.
So applications are made during the evening hours when different insects are out, so you might have lightning bugs, things of that sort, but they're affecting certain weight class of insects. So they may affect midge flies, which you guys do have a little bit of here coming off the lakefront, but would not affect larger insects that are active at that time, which might include any types of lightning bugs, things of that sort. So from bees' standpoint, most bees, if there's a bee out during the evening hours, it's lost and going to die because it's not going to make it home. So, and there are certain weight class. And so the USDA just did a massive study through Louisiana State University, and they did applications where applications were made during the day when bees were active and flying, and they applied mosquito applications 50 feet from flying bees, and they still didn't see any type of knockoff or dying from that.
Thank you.
Yes.
Just a personal report. So I'm one of those people that if there is a bug in the room that bites things, I will get bit. Like, I think they love me. And I've noticed very happily, at least the past 2 summers, that I could, I'm outside all the time, bring my dog all the different places, and I never get bit by mosquitoes, and I'm incredibly grateful. So, whatever
you.
that's worth. Thank you.
It's the decision of the board that allows that to
Love
happen,
me.
so.
Yes, so thank us.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
And so my question was also very similar to the question about bees. When we asked you that question about a year ago, you were, and basically for adult population control, and you said that no, bees are not affected, but bees, from a size standpoint, there's 150 species of bees. Some are actually the same size than mosquitoes. My question is actually coupled with a different question that is, my wife has asthma. And when you guys do the adult control, and we have been going through that in the last 30 years in Lake Bluff, she will not be able to breathe for the next 2 days. She will be with her
Ambulance.
inhaler, thank you. And she's really not feeling well, okay? So my question to you is, have you guys working on changing formulation not to affect people with respiratory disease, simply enough?
So at this time, there hasn't been any updates to adult mosquito control. I can tell you that, and again, I can't speak to your wife's condition or what happens after applications. When West Nile virus emerged in New York City, they did studies, pre and post applications for 5 years on whether there'd be increased hospitalizations or increased numbers of people who entered into hospitals based on asthma attacks, and the numbers were not different pre or post application. So I can't, again, speak to your wife's condition specifically, and she may have a condition which aspirate-sized droplets, whether it be dust or insecticides, cause those issues. It sounds like it's a size mechanism. So there hasn't been any changes at this point. Now, there are a lot of things that are being tested, different types of sterile insects and things of that sort, all being looked at to reduce adult mosquito control. At this time, there hasn't been any changes.
Thank you.
But just so I'm clear, if we were to extend our contract, if I'm recalling correctly, if we were going to be considering adult treatment, it would come back to the board before doing it?
Probably not.
Okay.
Given it would have to be just the luck of when I got the recommendation or the situation. It'd be a decision that I would have to make working with our contractor and live with the consequences.
Okay, as long as you're prepared to live with the consequences.
Yeah, we've talked about it. It's one of those where it really would need to be necessary.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
And just from a standpoint of making a recommendation, I'm well aware of what the outlook of the village is on adult mosquito control. And so we don't make frivolous recommendations. We've been working here in the community for many years, and now working under this agreement. We understand what the community is looking for, and that's why we use those organic material review institute listed products. And if we do need to make that decision, it is a long discussion. So we look at a lot of data and make sure that if that's the recommendation we're going to move forward with, we are secure in making that
and
recommendation.
the weather has to cooperate on top of that.
There's a lot of other factors that come into play. So we are aware of that, and we've been under this agreement for this is our third year here at this point, and so we have not even had to make that recommendation for any of those treatments.
It's a heavy decision for a lot of people you guys are making. I hear quite often the garden club talking to us, or I'm part of these conversations, such as insects are good for us. We also have to mitigate for all the Niles, anything else that could come our way. But we're very sensitive to that decision. So thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Any more questions from the board?
I appreciate your time this evening.
Thank you so much for your report.
Thank you so much.
And that's my report.
Thank you.
Nicely done.
Bye, library board. Thank you.
Yes.
I can sing you all.
But wait, there's more.
So I also get a request for item 6C next. And so if there are no objections, I'd like to take 6C now rather than later. No objections, so moving forward to item 6C. That is our fiscal year 2023-24 annual comprehensive financial report.
Bye, George. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, and we already talked about that at 6 p.m., but I'm happy to report on page 45 of this report that the village obtained the highest opinion possible, an unmodified opinion from the independent audit firm Sikich, from Martha. So I'm very happy that we have achieved that again, Bettina. And this is, I know how much work it takes, and and you have done that year after year after year for the sake of the village, for transparency and for the quality of our village. So thank you very much. Thank you, Martha, also, sorry.
Thank you. Good evening. I am Martha Trotter. I'm a principal with Sikich, the village's independent auditors, and I'm here tonight to present the results of the fiscal year 2023-24 financial statement audit. I presented to the Finance Committee a detailed report of the annual comprehensive financial report. I just wanted to present to the board tonight based on the audit that we performed in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards. We are prepared to issue a clean, unmodified opinion on the village's financial statements for the fiscal year ended April 30th, 2024. And that is the highest level of assurance that we can provide based on the testing that we performed, as was noted, as conducted with generally accepted auditing standards. I do want to extend our team's appreciation for all of the effort that goes into the preparation for the audit, in going above and beyond what is required in providing us the information on a timely basis. The village has the day-to-day operations that are obviously required to continue to run, and the audit is an additional burden on top of that placed on the village's finance team. So to be able to provide all that information to us in order for us to be able to issue that highest level of opinion speaks to the hard work and effort that goes into that. And also the village does prepare the annual comprehensive financial report and does file that report with the Government Finance Officers Association. The village has been awarded the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting for the previous fiscal year audit, as is presented in the annual comprehensive financial report, and does anticipate receiving that same award for the annual comprehensive financial report that I'm presenting tonight. So that, once again, just speaks to the level of effort that the village goes through in order to prepare financial statements that not only comply with GAAP, but also have the additional information in the informational section and the statistical section to provide users of the financial statements some additional transparency and information. So I just wanted to, once again, extend our appreciation for all of the work that goes into this, and I'm happy to address any questions on the financial statements.
No questions?
No questions.
No questions. I did not ask for a motion on this report. Is there a motion to accept?
Motion
the
to
annual-
accept.
Second.
Awesome. Are there any further questions? This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And the motion carries. Thank you, Martha.
Thank you.
Martha.
Good evening.
Martha? Thank you.
And we are resuming
6A.
to item 6A, that is our warrant reports for November 12 to November 25, 2024, and fiscal year 2025 payroll expenditures to date. Is there a motion to approve the warrants report?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. And specifically, that would be for expenditure of village funds for payment of invoices in the amount of $1,049,606.84 for November 12 to November 25, 2024, and for expenditure of village funds for payment of payroll in the amount of $322,708.18 for September and $489,476 for October 2024, for total expenditures of $1,861,800.84. Are there any questions on the board to Bettina? And I've looked at the ledger, I've looked at the report, and I do not have questions myself. So it is a roll call.
Yep.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Freed.
Aye.
Trustee Hatch. Trustee Rappin.
Aye.
Trustee Ryder.
Aye.
Trustee Cole.
Aye.
The motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you, Wilfred. Next item is item 6B, the October 2024 financial report. Is there a motion to approve the finance report? Accept the finance report.
So moved.
Second.
Bettina, do you mind walking us through that?
Sure. So included in the packet for your consideration was the October 24 financial report. Noteworthy items found in the report include the monthly sales tax revenue on a cash basis for October fiscal year 25 of $394,014, which is $32,153, or 8.9% greater than the fiscal 24 cash basis receipts for the same period. On the general fund fiscal year 25 year-to-date revenues of $9,244,645 are $1,125,322 greater than the fiscal 24 year-to-date revenues. And fiscal 25 current expenditures are consistent with or less than budgeted for the total general fund. The fiscal year-to-date expenditures of $6,217,400 are $833,787 greater than the expenditures for the same period in fiscal year 24.
Thank you.
Sure.
Questions to Bettina? It is going to be a voice vote. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And the motion carries again. Thank you very much, Bettina.
Thank you.
I believe that our next item is item 8, our village attorney's report. Mr. Friedman?
No report tonight.
Thank you. And followed by my report. And on Sunday, November 17, residents discovered hateful inscriptions, including offensive symbols targeting Jewish people on the Robert McLaury bike path, just north of a train station. These hateful markings have caused significant distress and fear among community members. I want to be very clear about that, particularly those of a Jewish faith. In response, community leaders and members united to condemn this act and offer support to those affected. I want to commend the village staff for their swift response in removing the offensive markings from the pavement and tree trunks. Hate, in all its forms, is always unacceptable. Plainly and simply, hate has no place in our community. On November 13, 2023, I shared the statement of Unity Against Hate, addressing the rise in anti-Semitic and Islamophobic rhetorics and behavior. These recent incidents reinforce the importance of standing together against such harmful ideologies. This week, as we celebrate Thanksgiving, we're reminded of the enduring power of unity, gratitude, and togetherness. Originating from the historic feast shared by the Pilgrims and the Wampanoag people, Thanksgiving symbolizes resilience and cooperation amidst deep adversity. It is a time to honor the diversity that defines our nation. People from different traditions, language, cultures, religions, and background coming together to create a vibrant and inclusive society. Lake Bluff embodies the spirit of unity. As we reflect on last Sunday's event, let us renew our commitment to fostering an inclusive and compassionate community where we all feel safe, valued, and respected. By upholding these principles, we can ensure that Lake Bluff remains a welcoming home for all, celebrating the strength found in our shared humanity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any comment on the board? Anything to add?
I'll just take an opportunity to thank you for saying the words you said tonight and reiterate my gratitude for the swiftness that the community, whether it was you and Drew or the police officers, the staff that went out and very quickly cleaned up and took measures to make sure that my kids didn't have to see that, and I hope no other children, regardless of what religion they are raised in, had to see that. I'll briefly say that I moved to Lake Bluff about 16 years ago and have never once regretted that decision, and I still don't. I grew up in a community where I, being a Jewish American, was surrounded by mostly other Jewish Americans. And I also took for granted that there are very few of us throughout the world. Mm-hmm. And when I have to be reminded that I am another, I feel sad. And I felt that way when I saw what happened in our own community. Generally, Lake Bluff is this beautiful, lovely, warm, welcoming community where we're bluffers above anything else. And whether it's political affiliation, religion, who you love, or what the color of your skin, we all join together and celebrate this community equally because we love it here. We serve and volunteer on boards, and we work in the community, and we attend the pancake breakfasts and the Halloween excitement and the 4th of July parade. And then once in a while, something happens when I have to say, oh, right, some people don't see me as the same as them. I can handle that. I have thick skin. I picked a career that requires that of me. And I continue to serve in public places where people might be mad at me or not like me, and I'm okay with that. I'm not okay with my children having to learn that lesson after all the hard work they're ancestors and their grandparents specifically did to assure that never again would mean their grandkids and my children. So I think we have to keep doing that work, and what that work means isn't just a swift response and a helpful, loving community who reach out and say, you know, we're here, that was so sad. It's what kind of conversations are happening in our houses about what that symbology means and what is the intent behind it, and what kind of response we see as a follow-up. So I look forward to being updated, and I hope that swift and appropriate response continues to occur. I hope we find out who did that. And then in the meantime, again, I'm really grateful that I'm here and that I serve amongst people like all of you who care and who reach out and who express concern or disappointment. And I am, though I'm sad, I continue to be grateful that I live today in a community where I am allowed to sit on a dais like this and make decisions on behalf of my community.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sharon?
Any more comments? I don't think I will say that correctly, but if one of us is not free, the rest of us are not free as well. And that applies to hate. There is no place for that. So thank you. Next is item 10, acceptance of a correspondence. Please note that all correspondence was delivered to the Village Board of Trustees in the informational report on November 8 and 15, 2024. Is there a motion to accept the correspondence?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on the correspondence? Clerk, please call.
voice vote.
It's clerk, oh, sorry. Sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. I will never get used to that, I'm sorry. Next item would be 15 or
Oh, I'm sorry, 13. Don't want to skip that one.
13.
It's kind of the whole thing, right? Yeah.
It's the important one.
13 is, yes, it is, an ordinance abating 2024 property taxes levied for general obligation debt series 2019 and 2019A bonds of the Village of Lake Bluff, Lake County, Illinois. Is there a motion to approve this ordinance?
So moved?
Aye. Or second, sorry. Rubbing off on me.
Thank you.
Double, triple, yeah.
The village currently has refunding bonds, Series 2019 general obligation bonds outstanding. Pursuant to ordinances 2019-18, the county clerk is required to extend a property tax levy in an amount sufficient to pay the interest and principal on the bonds. Fortunately, the Waterworks Fund has adequate funds to transfer to the Waterworks bonds an interest account for principal and interest payment on the 2019 general obligation bonds, which allows the village to abate the annual property tax levy. Because the bond ordinances directing extension of the annual property tax levy were filed with the county clerk, an ordinance is required to abate, not levy, the property tax for these bonds. Any questions to Drew or
Bettina.
Bettina? Thank you. I'm sorry.
No?
No?
Good.
It is a roll call. Clerk, please call the roll.
It's a voice vote's first reading.
Oh, Jesus.
All right.
It's like, once you get going with the,
Right.
it's just gonna keep going. So we all understand and accept it, don't worry.
Fine. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you very much. And I'm sorry about that, maybe. Next is item 15, the trustees' report. Do any trustees wish to make a report tonight? Moving forward, I do not believe we have an executive session.
You do not.
Correct.
So moving forward to, could I please have a motion to adjourn tonight?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
It's a voice vote, I'm told by Peter. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And the motion carries.
Thank you, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, everybody have a good holiday.
And everybody has a great holiday. Thank you very much.